The ballroom of Blackwood Industries glittered beneath hundreds of crystal lights. Politicians, investors, celebrities, and executives filled the enormous hall, celebrating the company's most successful year in its history. At the center of it all stood Eleanor Blackwood, the billionaire CEO everyone wanted to meet. But Eleanor wasn't watching the guests. She was watching her 12-year-old daughter. Lily stood beside her mother in a beautiful silver dress, one hand resting lightly on Eleanor's arm. Lily had been blind since birth, but she had never allowed that to define her. She could recognize people by their footsteps, identify rooms by their echoes, and remember voices after hearing them only once. Still, crowded events made her uncomfortable. So when Lily suddenly released her mother's hand and began walking across the ballroom, Eleanor immediately became nervous. "Lily?" Her daughter didn't stop. "Sweetheart, where are you going?" Lily continued toward the far entrance. Eleanor hurried after her. Then she saw who Lily was approaching. A janitor. The man was kneeling near a table, cleaning a spilled drink while guests walked around him as though he were invisible. His name was Daniel Hayes. He had worked for Blackwood Industries for 8 months. Eleanor knew almost nothing about him. He was quiet, polite, always punctual. He never attended employee gatherings and never seemed interested in the company's enormous wealth. To most people, he was simply another worker in a gray uniform. But Lily stopped directly in front of him. Daniel immediately stood. "Hello," he said gently. Lily smiled. "You're the one." Daniel looked confused. "The one?" "The man who sounds like the ocean." Several nearby guests laughed. Eleanor didn't. Her daughter never said things without meaning. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Eleanor asked. Lily reached toward Daniel. "May I?" Daniel hesitated, then offered his hand. Lily touched his fingers. "You're always listening." Daniel's expression changed. Eleanor noticed it. "What are you listening for?" Lily asked. Daniel looked around the ballroom. "Nothing." Lily smiled. "Yes, you are." The room suddenly seemed quieter. Daniel gently pulled his hand away. "You should stay with your mother." But Lily shook her head. "No." Eleanor stepped forward. "Lily, come back. I want to stay with him." Eleanor blinked. "With the janitor?" Lily nodded. "I choose him." A few guests exchanged amused glances. One wealthy businessman whispered to another, "Apparently even billionaires can't control their children." Eleanor heard him but ignored the comment. She crouched beside Lily. "Sweetheart, you don't know him." "I know his footsteps." "That isn't enough." "It is for me." Daniel looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Blackwood, perhaps I should return to work." "Yes," Eleanor said quickly. "That would be best." Daniel nodded. But before he could leave, Lily grabbed his sleeve. "Please don't go." Daniel stopped. His face softened. "I'll be nearby." "You promise?" "I promise." Lily released him. Daniel pushed his cleaning cart toward the corridor. Eleanor watched him disappear. Something about the encounter bothered her. It wasn't that Lily liked him. It was the way Daniel had reacted. He hadn't seemed flattered by Lily's attention. He had seemed concerned. As though protecting her had become instinctive. Later that night, after the guests had gone, Eleanor returned to her office. She couldn't stop thinking about Daniel. She opened the company's employee database. Daniel Hayes. Age, 38. Employment, Blackwood Industries, Maintenance Division. Previous employment, unavailable. Emergency contact, none. Military service, not disclosed. Eleanor frowned. Not disclosed? She called the company's security director. I need a complete background check on Daniel Hayes. There was a long silence. Daniel Hayes, ma'am? Yes. Is there a problem? I don't know. That's what I want you to find out. 20 minutes later, the security director entered her office. His expression was unusually serious. Mrs. Blackwood. What did you find? He placed a thin folder on her desk. We couldn't find much. Eleanor opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Daniel. But this wasn't the quiet janitor she had seen tonight. The photograph showed a younger man wearing military gear. His expression was focused. Behind him stood several armed service members. Eleanor stared at the page. What am I looking at? The security director swallowed. Daniel Hayes served in the United States Navy. Eleanor looked closer. Then she saw the next line. Former Navy SEAL. She slowly lowered the photograph. A SEAL? Yes. Why is a former SEAL working as a janitor? We don't know. Eleanor stared toward the windows. Outside, the city lights stretched endlessly into the darkness. Something was wrong. People didn't simply erase years of their lives. Especially not people with military backgrounds like this. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. Lily appeared in the doorway. Mommy? Eleanor quickly closed the folder. Sweetheart, what are you doing awake? I couldn't sleep. Lily walked inside. Then she smiled. Daniel gave me something. She held out a small piece of cloth. Eleanor recognized it immediately. It was part of Daniel's work uniform. Why did he give you that? Lily shrugged. He said I should keep it close. Eleanor took the cloth. As she turned it over, her fingers felt something hard sewn into one corner. She carefully examined it. A tiny metal tag was hidden inside. 3 words were engraved on it. Stay awake. Eleanor's heart began pounding. She looked at Lily. Did Daniel say anything else? Lily shook her head. Then she whispered. He said someone might come looking for me. Eleanor froze. What? Before Lily could answer, a sound came from the hallway. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Daniel appeared at the doorway. His eyes immediately went to the metal tag in Eleanor's hand. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Daniel quietly said, Mrs. Blackwood. His voice was different now. Not the voice of a janitor. It was the voice of someone who had spent years giving orders in dangerous places. You need to take Lily home. Eleanor stood. Why? Daniel looked toward the dark corridor behind him. Because someone knows where she is. And for the first time that night, Eleanor realized that Lily hadn't simply chosen a stranger. She had chosen the only man in the building who already knew danger was coming. The next morning, Eleanor arrived at Blackwood Industries before sunrise. She had barely slept. Daniel's words kept repeating in her mind. Someone knows where she is. Lily was in a secure room upstairs with 2 guards outside the door. Eleanor had doubled the company's security overnight, but somehow she still didn't feel safe. Then she saw Daniel. He was pushing his cleaning cart through the lobby as if nothing had happened. Eleanor walked straight toward him. You're a Navy SEAL. Daniel stopped. Formerly. You lied on your application. No. You left your military history blank. I didn't want anyone asking questions. Well, I'm asking. Daniel looked toward the elevators. Not here. Eleanor followed him into an empty conference room. Who is watching my daughter? I don't know yet. That isn't good enough. I agree. Eleanor stared at him. Then tell me why you are really here. Daniel remained silent for several seconds. Because 8 months ago, I received information that someone was monitoring Lily. Eleanor's face went pale. Who? I don't know. You expect me to believe that? No. Daniel reached into his pocket and placed a folded piece of paper on the table. I expect you to believe this. Eleanor opened it. It contained several dates. Locations. Photographs. Every location was somewhere Lily had visited. A museum. A children's library. A private clinic. Even a park near their home. Eleanor's hands trembled. Someone followed her? 4 months. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know who inside your security team could be trusted. Eleanor stared at him. Then the conference room door opened. Lily stood there. Daniel? His expression softened immediately. I'm here. Lily walked toward him. I knew you were close. Eleanor watched as Daniel took Lily's hand. Then Lily suddenly stopped. Someone is coming. Daniel's head lifted. The hallway outside was silent. Eleanor heard nothing. But Daniel immediately moved Lily behind him. 3 seconds later, the elevator doors opened. 2 men stepped out. They wore expensive suits and carried Blackwood Industries identification badges. One smiled. Mrs. Blackwood, we're here regarding a confidential corporate matter. Daniel didn't answer. He studied them. Their shoes. Their hands. Their posture. Then he quietly said. Eleanor, call security. The first man frowned. There's no need for that. Daniel stepped forward. There is. The man's hand moved toward his jacket. Daniel reacted instantly. He blocked the man's movement and forced his arm away from Lily. The second man turned and ran. Security officers rushed into the hallway and restrained him before he reached the exit. Within minutes, both men were detained. Eleanor stood frozen. How did you know? Daniel looked at the first man's jacket. His badge was upside down. Eleanor frowned. So? Real employees don't wear their badges like that. He pointed toward the second man. And neither of them had the security clearance required to enter this floor. Eleanor looked at Lily. Her daughter was holding Daniel's sleeve. Who are they? Daniel's expression darkened. People who wanted to get close to Lily. But why? Daniel hesitated. Because someone believes she knows something. Eleanor shook her head. She can't see. Daniel looked at Lily. That doesn't mean she doesn't notice things. Lily quietly said. They're looking for the room. Daniel turned toward her. What room? The room with the humming sound. Eleanor stared at her daughter. What room? Lily pointed toward the basement. Under Mommy's company. Daniel exchanged a look with Eleanor. Do you have restricted facilities beneath this building? Eleanor nodded slowly. An old records archive. Who has access? Very few people. Daniel's expression became serious. Then we need to go there. They descended to the basement with security officers. The archive appeared untouched. Rows of old documents filled the shelves. Then Lily stopped. There. Daniel followed her voice. Behind a wall was a faint electrical hum. They searched the area and discovered a concealed panel. Inside was a small computer server. Eleanor stared at it. I've never seen this. Daniel looked at the cables. This doesn't belong to your company. The security team immediately began investigating. Within hours, they discovered that someone had been secretly copying confidential corporate files and tracking members of Eleanor's family. But one file was different. It contained Lily's name. Eleanor opened it. Inside was a photograph of Lily taken months earlier. Beneath it was a simple note. "Find the girl before Hayes does." Eleanor looked at Daniel. "They knew you?" Daniel nodded. "Yes." "Who are they?" "People from my past." Daniel finally told Eleanor the truth. Years earlier, during his final military operation, his team had uncovered a criminal network moving money through legitimate corporations. The operation had failed, and several members of his team had disappeared. Daniel survived. But someone had spent years trying to find him. He had changed his identity, left the military, and stayed out of sight. Until he learned that Lily was being watched. "So you became a janitor to protect her?" Eleanor asked. Daniel shook his head. "I became invisible." Eleanor looked at him differently now. For months, she had barely noticed him. Her employees had ignored him. Guests had walked past him. Yet while everyone else saw a janitor, Daniel had been watching every entrance, every hallway, and every person who came near Lily. Lily reached for his hand. "You stayed." Daniel smiled. "I promised." Eleanor looked at her daughter. Then she looked at Daniel. "My daughter chose you." Daniel glanced at Lily. "She chose someone she could trust." Eleanor extended her hand. "Daniel Hayes, I don't care what your job title says. From today onward, you have a place beside my family." Daniel shook her hand. "I'll protect her." Lily smiled. "I knew you would." Outside, the sun rose over the city. For the first time in years, Eleanor understood that money could buy guards, cameras, and locked doors. But it couldn't buy instinct. It couldn't buy courage. And it couldn't buy the kind of loyalty that made a former Navy SEAL disappear into the background just to keep one little girl safe. Everyone at Blackwood Industries had called Daniel a janitor. Lily had never believed them. She had heard something nobody else could hear. Not weakness. Not fear. A protector. And when the world finally discovered who Daniel Hayes really was, the billionaire CEO realized her blind daughter hadn't made an unusual choice at all. She had simply seen the truth before everyone else.